I think the big picture takeaway from this is that one of these candidates is much slicker than the other, is a much more practiced kind of professional debate style speaker, and the other candidate won.
Yes, Rachel Maddow on MSDNC. They were all issued, I think the party issued the word slick for JD Vance. They're all using it last night and today. And the other candidate won. Tim Walz won. If falling down a flight of stairs and face planting, blooding your own nose, if that's how you win, then maybe that's right. He lost, he was drubbed, he was flogged, he was beaten. But the headlines today, New York Magazine, isn't that where Olivia Nuzzi works? I think that's right. JD Vance may be unprincipled. Yeah, sure. But he's smart and slick. Smart and slick. The Guardian, JD Vance's slick performance can't change the danger of another Trump presidency. Yeah, remember there was no war in Europe, no war in the Middle East. Our border was secure, no gangs marauding. Yeah, it was really dangerous. Sure. Even the New York Post today, best and worst VP debate moments. Quote, slick JD versus cornball Tim. Cornball Tim. That's in quotation marks, so they're quoting somebody else. Rachel Maddow says JD Vance was polished and very slick. She liked things that are polished and very slick, doesn't she? Like things that are polished and slick? I think so. And the Daily Mail, viewers say they know Tim Walz is not a slick debater. They got a lot of slick stuff going on here. Unprincipled and slick and smart and sidelines and slick, and Rachel Maddow is slick. That means that he did great, that he was polished, that he was articulate, that he didn't fall down a flight of stairs and faceplant. So they try to spin that as a negative by calling him slick. See how this works? Doesn't matter how well you do, they'll find a negative word to describe you. That's our phony, baloney, corrupt news media. Now we know that Tim Walz has lied about, I carry a weapon of war in war. And then, of course, he didn't go to Iraq. I was a command sergeant major in the Minnesota Army Guard Reserve. No, you weren't. You really weren't. You didn't achieve that rank. You didn't retire at that rank. You can't describe yourself for the rest of your life as a command sergeant major. That's reserved for the few. But never mind that. So J.D. Vance lied about that. He lied about carrying my weapon of war in combat. He lied about being a command sergeant major. Turns out he also lied about being in Hong Kong during the Tiananmen Square massacre of students by the communists in communist China who were bringing about a socialist paradise. So, you got to break a few eggs, as the communists always say. And headline today, Walz forced to correct record on whether he was in China for the Tiananmen Square protests. Hey, were you in China for the Tiananmen Square? Oh, yes, I was, he said many times. Walz previously claimed to be in China for the Tiananmen Square protests in 1989. I remember where I was. I was in a newsroom in Washington when all that was going on. But I wouldn't claim that I was in Hong Kong. I've been to Hong Kong, but I wasn't there for the Tiananmen Square thing. Amazing. Democrat vice presidential nominee Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, was forced to answer questions about his controversial travel to China and misstatements about those trips during Tuesday night's debate. Walz has said he was in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests. I call it the Tiananmen Square massacre because that's what it was, in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio, and if you can't believe Minnesota Public Radio, who can you believe? And other media outlets are now reporting that Walz actually did not travel to China until August of that year. Wait a minute, he wasn't. And the news media is like, oh, come on, it's the wrong month. He was there that year, but, yeah, sure. I remember I was in Honolulu for the attack on Pearl Harbor. Oh, well, I was actually in Nebraska then, but That's okay. I was in New York. Remember, Hillary Clinton claimed that she was in New York on 9/11, and she was lying about that on September 11th, 2001, the al-Qaeda attacks, the radical Islamic jihadi attacks. And she claimed, oh, yeah, I was in New York, I was in Manhattan, and she wasn't. She was lying. She was there 2 days later, maybe even 1 way later, but she wasn't there when it happened. But never mind that. So now it turns out that Minnesota Public Radio, suckling on the taxpayer teat, that and other media outlets now saying, no, he wasn't, didn't travel to China, to Hong Kong, any place else until later that year. Almost. But he goes around telling people, he has gone around, probably stopped that now, telling people that I was in Hong Kong during and then he spent a lot of time in communist China because I think he likes communism. Just my guess. So the question about lying, and I guess it was Margaret Brennan again, asking, hey, and you could have teed it up better with, you claimed you fought in Iraq, and you didn't. You claimed to have carried a weapon of war in war, and you didn't. You claimed that you were a command sergeant major when you weren't almost, but not quite. And you claimed that you were in China, in Hong Kong, for the Tiananmen Square massacre in 1989. So you lie about stuff all the time, but that's not the question you get when you're a Democrat, of course.
We want to ask you about your leadership qualities. Governor Walz, you said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989.
Wow.
But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Can you explain that discrepancy? That was the pointed, edgy question there. Couldn't possibly be more polite. And doesn't tee it up with all the other falsehoods that here's that bada bing, bada boom. None of that, but that's it. Can you explain that and explain it away so that we can just put it behind us as fake journalists, says Margaret Brennan. Tim Walz then proceeds to talk about a whole lot of stuff and never address the question.
Look, I grew up in small rural Nebraska, town of 400.
Green lawns.
You rode your bike with your buddies till the streetlights come on, and I'm proud of that service. Yeah. I joined the National Guard at 17.
Tiananmen Square.
Worked on family farms. And then I used the GI Bill to become a teacher, passionate about it, a young teacher. The GI Bill to become. How young could you be? You were in the Army, then you went to college on the GI Bill, then you become a teacher. Couldn't really be that young anymore because the Army and the college and all that stuff. But that's not really addressing the question, is it? And neither is this. My first year out, I got the opportunity in the summer of '89 to travel to China. 35 years ago, be able to do that. I came back home and then started a program to take young people there. We would take basketball teams, we would take baseball teams, we would take dancers, and we would go back and forth to China. The issue for that was to try and learn.
Yeah, now the question, what was the question again? This is a Democrat technique. Just talk about green lawns and middle-class families until nobody remembers what the question was. He kept babbling.
My community knows who I am. They saw where I was at.
My community.
Look, I will be the first to tell you.
Cut him off.
I have poured my heart into my community. I've tried to do the best I can.
What was
but I've not
what
been
was
perfect.
The question again?
And I'm a knucklehead at times, but it's always been about that.
I'm a knucklehead at times, like the Three Stooges. He's like Curly on the Three Stooges. Yuck, yuck, yuck. He's and his community knows who he is, and none of it. But what the question was, you claimed, and the question was not very pointed. You claimed repeatedly that you were in China, in Hong Kong, for the Tiananmen Square massacre in 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio. What's the difference? Taxpayer teat, commie, propaganda, Democrat front group radio at the taxpayer expense. They said, hey, wait a minute. You weren't there then. And now we asked you this softball question about it. Now you're talking about how your mom made apple cider in the springtime and all this crazy stuff.
So look, my commitment has been from the beginning to make sure that I'm there for the people, to make sure that I get this right. I will say more than anything. Many times I will talk a lot. I will get caught up in the rhetoric. But being there, the impact it made, the difference it made in my life, I learned a lot about China.
Yeah, well, you're a communist, I think. That's pretty amazing. And you notice that he didn't answer the question at all. Then Margaret Brennan is looking around thinking, boy, I'm going to look like almost as much of an idiot as he looks.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said.
That's what I've said. I misspoke.
So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests, went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
Thank you, Governor.
That's it. He said, I was in. Now, the last part of that, he's reiterating the lie, isn't he? He's at the second half of that phony baloney answer. He's saying, well, I was there, in the democracy protest. No, the whole point of this question, this exercise, is that you were not.
I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests, went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
And then she says, okay, whatever, I give up. That's fine. That's, but that's nothing. What a piece of work.
Thank you, Governor.
Yeah, there it is. Just a total dodge, no answer. And she almost got there. I was like, oh, she's following up. And then she just lets him get away with it again, because when you're a Democrat, expect the tongue bath.
I've not been perfect, and I'm a knucklehead at times.
Yeah, I'm a knucklehead at times.
I've become friends with school shooters.
Yeah, become friends with school shooters. And who hasn't, really? All the Democrats. Now, let's go to because the corrupt news media then takes over, right? And we've got John King on CNN, and he acknowledged what was obvious to anyone that watched it.
The two issues driving the campaign right now are Harris has a big deficit on the economy, Harris has a big deficit on immigration, and Republicans were happy tonight and Democrats a little bit nervous that on those two issues, Vance carried it.
On those two issues, Vance carried it. Now, you heard how reluctant he was, and how he was with great trepidation, cautiously tiptoeing toward Vance kicked his butt. Let's bet that. Well, that's just because, Vance has been in politics for 2 years, and Walz has been in politics for 20-something years. And apparently at CNN, the reason Vance mopped the floor with Walz is because Vance is an old political hand. It's the opposite of the truth.
I agree. I mean, JD Vance is much more experienced at this, at public speaking, at defending himself, at pivoting.
Yeah, that's probably it. Better defending himself and pivoting. Why would he have to defend himself? Oh, yeah, CBS is moderating the debate. That's the thing. He's just better at debating. Why would he be better at debating? And that's a big talking point of the news media today, too, is that Vance he's slick, right? And he's better at debating. Why? How many has he been debating for years and years? Is that what's going on here? Just amazing. And Jen Psaki of the Biden White House and MSDNC, she, too, apparently noticed that Vance was much, much better.
I felt that if you're sitting at home and you were watching and you were not fact-checking and you weren't familiar with what JD Vance had said previously or what Donald Trump stood for, he seemed at many moments to be reasonable.
If you're not setting the bar pretty low, that's... I watched some MSNBC last night. They did not appear reasonable, not even close. Remarkable stuff. Yeah, CNN, got ABC, I got more media, ridiculous people for you. What a bunch of bootlicks. Bootlicks. Should write a song about them. You know that the best-selling Eden Pure Thunderstorm air purifier uses Oxy technology that helps to quickly destroy a whole lot of odors, mold spores, viruses in the air, in your home, in your office. Thousands of 5-star reviews online, glowing reviews. You know, it works like a champ. Any smell will vanish in just a few seconds when the thunderstorm is on. Trash can, cigarette smoke, your mother-in-law's cooking. I'm not kidding. Even smelly left-wing protesters are no match for the Eden Pure Thunderstorm. The powerful thunderstorm sends out O3 molecules that seek out and help to destroy odors. These molecules even go behind and underneath furniture. Nothing can hide from the Eden Pure thunderstorm. And this is great, too. No filters to buy or replace over and over again, like a lot of air filters. You can hold an Eden Pure in your hand like this. It's only about this big. And you can start enjoying the fresh, clean air in your home, in your office again, by getting several Eden Pure thunderstorms for a whole home protection. And right now, you can save $200 American on an Eden Pure thunderstorm 3-pack. A 3-pack, I tell you. So you get 3 units for under $200. You put one in your basement, your teenager's room, any place you like to breathe clean, fresh air. All you have to do is go to EdenPureDeals.com and use the code Chris3 to save $200. That's EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is Chris and the number 3. Yes, sir. Yeah, big debate. When the Democrat loses badly, then the media calls it a draw. It's an old custom. We're at 888-630-9625.
I've not been perfect, and I'm a knucklehead at times.
Tim Walz used to be a member of the House of Representatives, and when he was in 2012, he was at a congressional hearing when he lied about being in China for Tiananmen Square.
As a young man, I was just going to teach high school in Foshan in Guangdong, and was in Hong Kong in May of '89. And as the events were unfolding, several of us went in, and I still remember the train station in Hong Kong. It was a large number, especially European, I think, very angry that we would still go after what had happened. But it was my belief at that time that the diplomacy was going to happen on many levels, certainly people to people, and the opportunity to be in a Chinese high school at that critical time seemed to me to be really important. And it was a very interesting summer, to say the least.
He had an elaborate story about the Europeans mostly in the train station, and people were really riled up because of what had happened in Tiananmen Square, and they were in Hong Kong, and the trains and the people and the Europeans, and he had a very elaborate lie that he told because he's a liar. He lies about carrying a rifle in combat and being in Iraq and being a command sergeant major and being in China for the Tiananmen Square massacre. But he really enjoyed communist China and the teaching and all of that good stuff. Isn't that amazing?
We can make sure that those weapons of war that I carried in war is the only place where those weapons are at.
Woo! The Democrats always cheer war. Problem is not our guns, it's your sons. Wah, wah, wah. That's the Democrat Party today. CBS News had voters on a panel after the debate. 2 Trump voters, 2 Kamala voters, and 2 undecided voters. I've got that coming up. Ah, yes. So many stories to tell, so many amazing stories. Talking to a friend of mine who, a while back now, reconnected with a woman that he knew in high school. They weren't dating, but he knew her in high school. Family friend and in the neighborhood, same school. And now the nice woman has grown up and she's married and she has 3 kids. And the woman who's now grown up, she's politically conservative. She's a conservative. And her husband is conservative. And they have 3 kids. They live in California. And they have 3 kids. All 3 of them are gender confused. All 3 of them have gone the tranny route because the schools, it's what they teach. They're teaching to the test. So nice young woman, grew up, got married, conservative mom, conservative dad, 3 children. Sounds perfect. California, all 3 of them gender messes, just gender messes. Because, you know why, Michael? Democrats is the correct answer to that. Boy. All right, now let's go to CBS. And my friend Marty said, this is funny. CBS is really good. They found the only 2 undecided voters in the country. Pretty much true. CBS fake news, they had a panel after the debate that they moderated last night. I'm making quotation marks with my fingers. And they had a panel of 6 people, and the 2, they're Trump voters, 2, they're Kamala voters. The other 2, they're undecided voters, and CBS brought them in to watch the debate with the CBS News people. Uh-oh. And then you hit the button.
Following last night's debate, we asked the voters, who do they think won? They said JD Vance. Most of them said that he won this debate. Before the debate started, 2 of the voters said that they were going to vote for Trump. 2 said they would vote for Harris. 2 said they were undecided. But by the end of it, those 2 undecided said they would vote for Trump. So clearly, these voters didn't see eye to eye on all the issues.
Clearly, these voters didn't see eye to eye on all the issues. Are there 2 people on the planet that see eye to eye on all the issues? Because that's a pretty high bar, I've got to say. Yeah. And honestly, if you're still undecided at this stage of the game, I don't know what to say about you. Media, the crooked news media. And let's see. Let's go to John Carl. He's at ABC Fake News. And I did say last night I was texting on a number of different group threads and individual threads during the debate with lots of people that I know. It's a primary means of communication these days, my iPad and my keyboard. I don't do a lot of that on my phone because I don't like texting on a phone. It's too annoying. But an iPad with a keyboard, not so bad. And I was watching. I think it was when Vance pushed back on the 2 Democrats working for CBS, and said, "Now wait a minute about the illegal alien Haitians living in Ohio, in Springfield, Ohio, right?" And they jumped on it and cut him off and tried to derail it on behalf of the Democrat Party in the Kamala campaign, and he pushed back. And there's a comedian, a guy named JB Smoove. JB Smoove, Smoove, right? And he's on Curb Your Enthusiasm and other shows. And he's a funny guy. He's a comedian, a comedic actor, and he's a funny guy, and I like him. But last night I said, hello, JD Smoove. I said I was making a JB Smoove reference. And Smoove, I think I did like 7 O's, though, with JB Smoove. And he was very smooth last night. There's no doubt about it. And John Carl thought so, too.
I think that Walz did seem unsteady. And frankly, what I saw in Walz is somebody who has not faced questions on a national stage since he became the Democratic nominee. In contrast, J.D. Vance was very smooth.
He was smooth. He was like J.B. Smoove. And he was very smooth. And the thing is, now they say, oh, you're slick, and they try to turn it into a negative, the filthy news media. And then they steal stuff out of your car when you're not looking. The news media, why do they do that? That's not all of them, but a lot of them. Yeah, Walz was unsteady. He was very unsteady. Untethered, like your average run-of-the-mill Democrat. Jake Tapper is a former Democrat Capitol Hill staffer, and he summed it up on CNN. They say, well, and again, Walz he was in Congress for 4 terms, 8 years. He's been elected governor twice. He's a career politician. And Vance is basically brand new to politics. But at CNN, they'll just lie to you and tell you something else.
Vance clearly, I think it needs to be said, clearly the more experienced debater, the slicker speaker.
Slicker speaker. Meaning he's intelligent and steady and comfortable in his skin and good on his feet. And when he's got 2 hostile fake journalists that are allegedly moderating and a dim-witted Democrat who's a command sergeant major combat vet who was in Hong Kong for Tiananmen Square and all of that, it is, and he gets away with all of it. And then the media as well, clearly have more experience. No, this guy's brand new to politics, J.D. Vance. But at CNN, you just, when you go to sleep at night, it's like the old Ronald Reagan line about Democrats. It's not that Democrats don't know anything. It's just that so much of what they know is wrong. And this is how you get there. You trust news sources that you shouldn't trust for your information. Amazing. Abby Phillip is also a Democrat that CNN pays, and she watched the debate last night, too. Now, I watched it, and JD Vance mopped the floor with Tim Walz, mopped the floor for every reason. I mean, first of all, he looks great. His eyes are electric blue. They have these hot blue backgrounds for these things, right? And his eyes were brighter blue. I don't normally notice such thing, but I commented to my best girl last night. You know, he looks good. He's relaxed. He's comfortable. He's smiling. He didn't shout. He didn't talk over. They behaved as Midwesterners behave. They were calm, cool, and no, Tim Walz was not. J.D. Vance was. Walz was skittish and nervous and frantically writing notes and scowling, and his eyebrows and his facial expressions were all over the place because he's not. Abby Phillip at CNN, she's a Democrat too.
JD Vance came to this debate to land a bunch of punches, and he did. He landed a lot of punches in between all the niceties and all of that. And the thing that really stood out to me was that Tim Walz did not seem prepared for it. He didn't respond to a lot of the criticisms and attacks that Vance put on the table. He allowed some clear falsehoods to just go completely unanswered.
She didn't say what those are because there were no clear falsehoods. And you already had Margaret Brennan jumping in to try to fact-check J.D. Vance, and she was wrong about the Haitian illegal aliens. She was spinning it for the Democrat Party. And I tell you, the news media peddles so much bourgeois. It's just astonishing. But it's true that Tim Walz was unsteady, unimpressive, inarticulate. He spewed a whole lot of falsehoods. And no fact checks on him. No fact. They interrupted Vance to jump on him about something, and they were wrong, and he was right. And beyond that, I didn't see anything that J.D. Vance said that was not factually correct. But he was slick, and that's Slick Willie was, of course, Bill Clinton's nickname, one of his nicknames, Slick Willie. And why was he called Slick Willie? Abby Phillip, Democrat on CNN, explaining, oh, gosh, but she did confess, more or less, that Tim Walz did terribly.
I think there was a clear lack of preparation and execution here on Walz's part.
I think actually it's the opposite.
Was that Dana Bash? No, it's the no. Oh, clearly he was really well prepared. I didn't even see that part. That's great. And it was J.D. Vance who wasn't prepared. Really? He was as steady as a rock. He was perfect last night. He had the best debate that we've seen of any candidate. President Trump has his own style, his own approach to all these things, very different. But J.D. Vance owned the stage. He owned the moderators. He owned his opponent, Governor and former House member Tim Walz, who's been in politics forever. And it's like, oh, well, and the news media just says, well, Vance has been in politics for so long. He's got so much debate experience. None of that is true. And then these are the people who say they're going to fact check you. Smell yourselves. Fact check yourselves. Just amazing. Now, at MSDNC, of course, they lied to their dwindling number of dim-witted, ill-informed viewers that, Walz really won the day, didn't he? And J.D. Vance, he didn't have a leg to stand on. Chris Hayes, who is kind of, what is he, like a cross-dressing Rachel Maddow. Chris Hayes, and he wasn't on MSDNC last night. He then, after the debate, went on the Stephen Colbert show because it's all part of the Democrat Party's propaganda apparatus. And remember, a lie told 1,000 times becomes the truth. And that's the Democrat Party's bumper sticker. Chris Hayes on Stephen Colbert on CBS Network last night after the debate.
Did you guys come up over there? Just give me, so I don't have to, I'm sure I've T-voted, but what did you guys say who won? Did you guys come up with an answer?
I think Walz won. I mean, I really do think he won. And
woo!
Do you think they're saying that on Fox?
What's that?
Or do you think they're saying that on Fox? Because
no, there's no way. No, of course not.
Anybody with a squirrel brain knows that Walz had his hat handed to him, and that JD Vance owned it from start to finish. The moderators, his opponent, the stage. He looked great. He sounded great. He smiled. He was calm. He won the day far and away. CBS News had two undecided voters by the end of the debate. They're like, I'm voting for Trump because of this guy. Everybody was texting last night about how the brilliant political future of JD Vance in Republican Party politics. Rachel Maddow, a Rhodes Scholar, and they pay her $30 million a year to show up once a week or maybe twice a week to babble, because it's good to be a Democrat Party propagandist, isn't it? Rachel Maddow last night.
There was one bad moment for Tim Walz in this debate where he got mixed up and embarrassed in answering a question about exactly what month he had been in China in relation to the Tiananmen Square protest. But then on guns, on January 6th, on Obamacare, on the economy, on blaming everything on the border, back again on health care, on abortion, on every issue on substance, JD Vance was very polished and very slick, and Tim Walz beat him on all the substantive points. At least that was my take on it.
Well, you're a very corrupt person, though. See, that's the problem with you. She's not an unintelligent person. She's just wrong about everything, and she's fundamentally corrupt. At her core, fundamentally corrupt. Just amazing. Yeah, Tiananmen Square and the abortion. God, they love abortion. You know, Roe was overturned by the Supreme Court in 2022. In 2023, we had more than 1 million abortions, the highest number of abortions in 12 years in the United States of America, much more than before Roe was overturned, and for a number of years before Roe was overturned. But it's never enough for them. They need more organs. They really do need more organs. Joe Scarborough used to pretend to be a Republican congressman. Then that assistant of his in his office in Florida, that young woman, had her head banged against a table and she died. That was a bad thing. That was really bad. But Joe Scarborough, now he's a Democrat. Because I don't know, I mean, maybe it's like the Ted Kennedy rule or something. Was he giving her a ride home? Was Joe Scarborough giving her a ride home? Right, but Joe Scarborough this morning, he's got a TV show, and they pay him millions of dollars, and he does the TV show from his basement in Florida, and they pretend to be in New York or in Washington or something. But Joe Scarborough, he watched, allegedly, the debate last night, too.
There's no doubt that despite the fact, if you look at the numbers, Walz won this debate.
Look at the numbers there. If you look, what numbers are those? I don't know what numbers you're looking at, but when you say there's no doubt, and then wait a minute, is JD Vance slick?
Look at the favorable, unfavorables after the debate, and you just kind of wonder if they're looking at the Ivy League guy and seeing what a smooth talker he was, and then the regular guy who again stumbled around a little bit, was nervous, but they're thinking, yeah, who wouldn't be nervous?
They lie and they lie and they lie and they lie, and they get paid for it. It's amazing. I mean, I'm kind of crazy about the truth. I really love the truth. And honestly, if I'd never seen JD Vance in a long-form setting, maybe nobody has, but it was a stellar showing by JD Vance, and Tim Walz looked like he was in a panic. He looked like there were people waiting to take him hostage just off camera all night long. Say he had a bad moment. Yeah, the bad moment was the debate.
And so I was getting texts from Democrats, panicked, quite frankly, who were saying, wow, he's really moderating himself on a lot of these issues. He's the most likable he has ever been.
So Iran fired, 180-something missiles at Israel yesterday, and they killed one Palestinian. Heck of a job, Tehran. And you remember Joe Biden warned them not to do this long ago, said, what's your message to Iran because they're threatening Israel?
My message to any state or any other hostile actor thinking about attacking Israel remains the same as it was a week ago. don't.
I guess they didn't take him seriously. Kind of remarkable. And Joe Biden and Benjamin Netanyahu are apparently not talking now. It's like a high school spat of some kind. Now, let's grab a quick call. Let's go to Chris, calling from the land of Lincoln, Illinois. Christopher, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Good morning, Mr. Plant.
Hey,
Glad
Chris.
to talk to you.
Welcome.
Was going to talk about the Democrats keep on talking about all this new drilling they've started and offshore drilling and all the energy they're producing. Well, how come they're emptying the Strategic Petroleum Reserve?
Because it scored them a couple of political points, knocking the price of a gallon of gas down a couple of pennies, and they don't care if they're gutting our Strategic Petroleum Reserve because it serves their interests in the moment,
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and last night you're talking about Walz last night saying, we're more natural gas than ever. We're drilling more than ever. We're more productive. And it's the opposite of what they'll tell you today on the same subject, right?
Yes, sir. And the debate was a smackdown. Walz looked like he was taking notes so he knows what to talk about because he didn't have any idea of what Vance was talking about half the night. So
that's a fact. I mean, really, Vance looked sharp and bright and ready to go, and Walz looked like he was about to be arrested by the secret police.
He did. He looked like he was scared to death.
Yeah, and if the fake news media people, if they had honestly all the questions we talked about, it would have been another project altogether. But if we had taken the questions put to JD Vance, which were aggressive, anti-Trump, designed to paint him into a corner and nail him, and then the questions asked of Walz were teeing up a talking point time and time again. And I was texting with friends, news media friends of mine, last night, and everybody was in full agreement. The questions, the imbalance in the questions and the way they were asked was very, very noticeable. But the news media just doesn't even care anymore. You don't want what they do. Turn the channel.